My name is April Rinne, and I am a futurist, and I help people and organizations better understand what's on the horizon and how they fit into it, but in particular, in a world in flux. And flux is really my defining theme. And when you think about the world, what's not in flux these days, personally, professionally, organizationally, societally? So how do we learn to navigate that space? And how do we learn to see and think differently so that we can thrive amidst it? What's interesting is that I get a wide range of requests because so much is in flux. So oftentimes leaders will ask me, we're just overwhelmed by change and uncertainty. How do we lead and manage and collaborate and navigate all of this unknown better? That's one. I also get requests from HR executives and looking at the future of talent and careers, and they're saying, the future of work is in flux. How do we navigate it? How do we rethink our organizational design and talent engagement? That's another one. So my book, Flux, 8 Superpowers for Thriving in Constant Change, is a kind of roadmap or guidebook to help you and your teams and your colleagues, and also your friends and family and everyone you care about, navigate and thrive in constant change better. So who's it for? Frankly, and I know you're not supposed to say a book's for everyone, but there is a nugget of wisdom in there for everyone, because everyone is grappling with change, struggling with change. We could all use some help in how we navigate it, how we improve our relationship to change. And so it's for a lot of different people. I will say most importantly these days, it's for leaders and teams. But also I hear from a lot of people saying, my spouse needs to read this. My kids could really benefit from this. And so I really like that. And why everyone should read it is because we are all not just struggling with change today, but we know that there's more uncertainty ahead. And in order to thrive in a world with more uncertainty, we have to radically reshape our relationship to change, uncertainty, and the unknown. And my book is designed to help you develop the mindset to do that, and then the practices, habits, and skills to put that into action. So what's fascinating to me is that on the whole, humans treat change as if it's one thing. It's one word, it's all the same. The reality is that change is messy and complicated, and there are lots of different kinds of change. So the first step is to get clear on what is your relationship to change. And just one example, humans tend to love changes we choose, changes we opt into, right? So you've got a new relationship or a new job or a new haircut. We love that kind of change, but we really struggle with the changes we don't control. The kinds of changes I think we've all experienced quite a lot of in the last few years. And the key is there's more of that kind of change ahead. And so a lot of this, part of how I got into this space is because I was doing so many different change management initiatives and being part of conversations about change management. And that's all about what do we do about change. But no one was talking about how do we show up for change? How do we feel about a given change? Why don't we talk about that? Because in fact, that shapes every strategy we set, every investment or decision we make. And so I talk about this in terms of your change mindset, which is what I call your flux mindset, and how that actually is a fundamental first step, shaping and strengthening that flux mindset that relates to everything you're going to do. And I think of your flux mindset as your mental muscle for change. And so that's kind of where you start. Now, how you build your tolerance for uncertainty is a practice that you have to develop over time, but the mindset is the first step. So my work and travels in more than 100 countries are actually part of the genesis of Flux. Because what I learned in those years and decades of spending time in a range of markets, and not just in developed countries, in emerging, developing countries, in marginalized communities, what I realized is that change is universal, but how we deal with it is not. And how you react and how you think about and talk about and see a given change is fundamentally shaped by your culture. And the beautiful thing about this is that for most of us, when we're dealt a given change, we react based on the cultural silo, the cultural toolbox of tools that we have, which is a very small fraction of the tools that are available to humans around the world. And so a lot of what I do is connect the dots and expose people to different ways of seeing, thinking, concepts, traditions, rituals, phrases, like all of this from around the world that celebrates the diversity of cultures in the world, but also helps all of us learn from one another and navigate change better. So travel has been a key fuel, if you will, a renewable fuel for my own work and research. And it's also something that I want to share with others. So I've been focused on the future of work for more than a decade, and I gave keynotes on remote work back in 2013 when most people were like, interesting, but not for us. And now we know that those keynotes are no longer needed. I'm not as focused on the entire future of work these days. I'm really looking at the slice of the future of talent and career development. And this is a space that is in massive need. It's in a lot of flux, but it's also in massive need of an update. And what I mean by that is that we are now living in a world in which there are more ways to develop a meaningful career, have a successful professional journey, earn income, contribute to society, all of these different things than ever before. And it goes far beyond jobs and far beyond your resume. And I look at this, it also, I should say, goes far beyond career ladders. So climbing the career ladder, pursuing a linear career path. These are all valid concepts, but they date to the first industrial revolution. They got established more than 250 years ago. We're far beyond that now. And so the work that I do primarily focuses on talent and careers and the notion that the shape of our career, the shape of a successful career in a future of work in flux is not a ladder to climb or a path to pursue to ever higher plateaus, but rather it is a portfolio to curate. And the future of work is the era of career portfolios. We can get more into portfolios and what they are and all that, but that's the brief answer as to where I fit within that landscape. So my top 3 pieces of advice, let me see if I can get 3. I've got 2 and the third will come to me. So the first one, and this is for leaders specifically, and I think we're all leaders in some way, shape, or form. We're leaders of our lives, we're leaders in our communities, etc., as well as our organizations. But in survey after survey after survey, the number 1 leadership quality or skill needed today is comfort with ambiguity, tolerance for uncertainty. That is fascinating because that is not what most of us were taught. And that is not what traditional leadership curriculum teaches you. And so this idea of being comfortable, radically comfortable, not knowing, embracing uncharted territory, embracing changes you don't control, that is a skill that, in my experience, the vast majority of leaders need to build, need to strengthen, need to improve. So that's 1. Second, when it comes to navigating change and uncertainty well over time, no single factor matters more than trust. And so trust is a theme I talk a lot about as well, but trust, just like change, is much richer and deeper and more complex than one word. Trust is cognitive and emotional. Trust is cultural and full of assumptions that sometimes are misplaced. And so digging into trust is another key element that I just want to put out there. And third, and this comes up often in team settings, is as a leader, one of the best things you can do with your team is to recognize that you're not alone. The only way you're going to get through uncertainty is together. And that is founded in trust. But also, I often hear from leaders like, what should I tell my team to do? And I always like to say, you have to start with yourself. Often leaders have the hardest time with change because they have the most vested interests in the status quo. And that can often be a bottleneck to your team and more broadly your community being able to change. So those are 3 things that come up again and again that are really foundational principles upon which everything else happens. What's next for me? Well, I have quite a few. I have talks in different places. The most exciting thing for me, there are two of them. One is I am actually working on my next book, which will be related to Flux, but not in the same format as Flux. It will definitely be highlighting a lot of the global themes that we've been talking about today. So that's super exciting. And also, and this is sort of, it's not random, it's very much related to what we've been talking about, but I'm actually doing more and more work around happiness and how our relationship to change, our ability to navigate change is fundamentally linked to our ability to be happy. And I had the opportunity earlier this year to work with the government of Finland, which, as you may know, is the happiest country on the planet. I'm half Finnish. And so I'm actually expanding that angle of happiness and well-being and what a Flux mindset can mean for that. And also how I might be more of a global ambassador for these ideas and these principles that Finland really showcases for the world.